Once clear.
Alright, so what did we learn from that? What did it talk about?
Did they say he soiled his pants?
Yeah, he was wearing somebody else's clothes and they were dirty?
They said soiled. So you could interpret that a couple ways.
Yeah.
I know where you were
That's
going.
what I'm
Yeah.
It could be that he had a little accident. You might want to include that.
in a minute.
So this is that last slide that I showed you guys the other day. This has everything that I'm going to want y'all to include in your obituaries, but I also added some fun facts to help you guys out in that aspect so you're not having to do a ton of research for this project. So he was born January 19th, 1809, died in October of 1849. His last words as he died in the hospital were, "Lord, help my poor soul." And shortly after his passing, one of his friends in the writing world wrote a really bad obituary about him that kind of damaged his reputation, where he criticized him a whole lot, talking about how he was a really gifted writer, but he was also a drunkard and a womanizer. He never had any children, but he was married to his first cousin, Virginia, when she was 13 and he was 27.
Jail time.
Hey man, I'm great.
He wasn't went to jail.
By today's standards, you're right. That's statutory rape. But Virginia died of tuberculosis in 1847, a couple years before Poe's death. So you could also kind of incorporate that. Maybe say that he went crazy because of his wife dying, something like that. So I really want to see y'all's creativity in this. You're going to draw a picture, come up with a cause of death. It said he was found lying on the street, but then he died in the hospital later. Poe is known for having lots of struggles with drugs and alcohol, things like opium, the hot drug of the era. As far as survivors go, you know, you can talk about how his wife preceded him in death, but he never had any children. You can maybe invent a pet that he left behind. We're going to be reading about a cat later in a story that he wrote that I think is really cool. Come up with some accomplishments during his lifetime, and you can use that article that we read on Friday to find some of those. It has, you know, it mentions several of his works that you can talk about. And then use your creativity again to come up with last wishes and funeral arrangements. And this is only like a one-page, you know, including the picture type deal. Y'all seen obituaries before, and we've got lots of examples. This PowerPoint is not working with me today. But y'all remember we read through, those aren't super long. Do we feel like this is something we can do?
Yes.
I believe in you. I really do.
Yes, we can.
There you go. All right, so everybody get out a piece of paper and you can start working on that. I'll be walking around the room if you have any questions at all. Remember, creativity is the main thing that I'm looking for. Yes. That's fine. You can move up.
So we only doing it on a piece of paper?
Huh?
I want to do it on construction paper.
You can have these computer paper if you want. Will that work for you? Yeah, we're only going to be doing this for the first 45 minutes. We'll stop taking the black hat, and that'll continue over anymore. It's really good. It's really good.
What?
Yeah.
So you did the important we need to think about.
Guys, y'all might remember we left off the other day. We were talking about how we're going to start writing an obituary for Edgar Allan Poe. So we'll go over that really fast before we get started one more time. As I said, the things that you're going to want to include in this are a picture. You want to come up with a cause of death, so be creative. And we're going to rewatch that video. I don't think we had time to finish the whole thing. So we'll watch, it's only about 45 seconds. So we'll watch that. So you might want to be like taking notes on that to use as far as for your obituary. You're going to want a list of survivors, and we're going to talk about that in a second because Edgar Allan Poe, he never had children. So as far as survivors go, you kind of get off the hook on that a little bit because there's not a whole lot to talk about. Accomplishments during his life. If you brought your book today where you can share with a neighbor, on page 306, there's a biography of Edgar Allan Poe that'll help you out with that. Also, if you remember that article we read on Friday, that talks about some of his accomplishments. And we talked about how Edgar Allan Poe was really instrumental in bringing about Gothic American literature instead of Gothic literature being just a thing with British literature. So that's definitely one of his accomplishments. And you can also use that article to find examples of his works that you can talk about. And then last wishes and funeral arrangements. So this is another, hey girls, this is another opportunity to use your creativity. Obviously, you're making something up. These aren't all hard, cold facts. I want to see some creative writing from you guys, something that's not just a 4-square essay, because I know we spent a lot of time on those, and this is hopefully going to be a breath of fresh air for you guys. So I've got this right here that'll kind of show you the layout of how things are going to go. And then I've just got some fun facts to tell you guys. You'll need to know his birthday and his death date, as you see outlined right here. He was born in January of 1809 and died in October of 1849. That made him 40 years old. His last words were, "Lord, help my poor soul." And shortly after his passing, one of his colleagues actually wrote a pretty harsh obituary for him, where he talked about how, like, even though he was a really good author and a really good writer, he was pretty troubled and was called him mentally deranged, talked about his problems with alcohol and drug use, and talked about how he was kind of a womanizer. Like I said, he never had children, but he married his first cousin, Virginia, when she was 13 and he was 27.
Yeah, he got problems.
He was a strange guy, he was. But Virginia, his wife, died of tuberculosis in 1847, which is 2 years before Poe died. So you might use that kind of to incorporate into your cause of death. Maybe he died of a broken heart. You can use your imagination. So here's that YouTube video. It'll kind of tell you the events surrounding the day that he died. But what did it say about Edgar Allan Poe? What kind of state was he in when they found him? He was delirious. He was wearing someone else's clothes. Yeah, what does it mean when they say soiled? It could be that they're just nasty, dirty. He needs, to go laundromat, or it could mean that he had a little bit of an accident.
Why you saying like that?
But they weren't his own clothes, so you can kind of use that also. And like I said, on page 306, there's a good biography that you can use as a reference. But if you'll take out a sheet of paper, I can give you computer paper if you want to use that. And y'all are going to have about 25 minutes to work on this. And it's okay if you don't get done today, because you don't have to turn it in until Friday. But try and use this time to your advantage, because you're not going to have more classes. So the more you get done today, the less you got to do at home. All right, get paper out. Let's go. So let's get paper out, guys. All right, guys. Y'all remember we left off talking about this obituary activity, and we're going to go ahead and get started on it today. So you're going to be writing an obituary for Edgar Allan Poe. I think I've got everything to help you out with it on the board right now. What you're going to need to include, you're going to want to draw a picture of him. I know everybody's not an artist. I'm certainly not an artist. If it's a stick figure, that's fine. If that's something that you're really passionate about and you want to draw a really cool drawing, I'll put it on my refrigerator. That's awesome. Here's a picture of him you can use to go by. Cause of death. We watched that video clip yesterday, and we're going to watch it again because it's only like 45 seconds. So it would probably be helpful if maybe you wanted to take a couple of notes on that so that you can use that information in your obituary. But remember, his cause of death isn't really known, so we want to be using our creativity. That's what I'm looking for in this writing assignment. Y'all don't get a lot of opportunities to write creatively, and so this is kind of that opportunity. You can make up facts. You can say crazy off-the-wall things. Just come up with a cause of death. How did he die? Tell me about it. We've been talking about how Gothic literature uses lots of descriptive words, so try and incorporate that into your obituary. A list of survivors, y'all kind of get off the hook with that one because he never had any children. He was married, but she died. We're going to talk about that in a second. So his list of survivors, pretty short. You can maybe make up a pet lizard or something like that. Accomplishments during his life. If y'all remember that article we read on Friday, that lists some of his It also talks about, it lists several of his writings, things that he wrote that you can maybe mention. Also, he brought Gothic literature to America. That's an accomplishment you can talk about. Over here, this is like a graphic organizer that's kind of laying out how to do all of this, and make sure you are writing in complete sentences. But it says, list of accomplishments awards. It talks about with survivors, people that are impacted by him. Of course, he's an author, so we could infer that he impacted other writers, people who read literature. So if you're looking for something to talk about with that, that's maybe an idea. But again, be creative. Use your creativity. This isn't an assignment graded on research. This is you showing that you can write creatively. And then finally, last wishes and funeral arrangements. So last wishes, this is like, did he want to be buried? Did he want to be thrown in a lake? What's going on? Funeral arrangement, specifics for donating money, like maybe there's a fund at the People's Bank downtown, whatever. Some little fun facts for you guys to know that'll also help in writing your obituary. He was born in January of 1809 and died in October of 1849. So he was only 40 years old when he died. He was pretty young. His last words were, "Lord, help my poor soul," in the hospital. Shortly after he died, one of his colleagues wrote a pretty harsh obituary about him where it criticized him. It said, you know, like, yeah, he was a really great writer and all, but he was also an alcoholic, a drug addict, accused him of being a womanizer, mentally deranged. He never had any children, but like I said, he was married to his first cousin, Virginia, when she was 13 and he was 27.
Wow.
That's a little, you know, he was obviously a little bit strange. But Virginia died of tuberculosis 2 years before Poe died. So you might say that he died of a broken heart, maybe, in your obituary. And I'm looking for, you know, no more than a page. We read those examples of obituaries, and you've probably seen them in the newspaper. These are pretty short and sweet, but you do want to make sure that you're having complete sentences. So we'll watch that video real fast, and then you guys can get started.
I don't know what happened to Poe.
So how did Poe look when they found him?
He was lying on his
A mess.
It was like
That's
if,
right.
It was like if they were trying to not let anyone know that it was like if it was somebody else.
He was
That
disoriented,
died, yeah.
so maybe he didn't even know who he was. It talked, what did it say about his clothing?
There was so
It's not his, it's somebody else's.
It
Yeah.
wasn't even his, and it's
I
soiled.
know.
Soiled can mean a couple things. It might just be that he's dirty, his clothes are dirty, and he needs to go to the laundromat, or maybe he had a little accident. Yes. Huh? Yes, go ahead.
No one knows.
So you might use that to draw some conclusions, come up with a really creative story of how you think he died. I'll put this PowerPoint stuff back up on the board so that y'all can use that as you're writing. And I'm going to give you about 25 minutes of class time to do this, but it is due on Friday. So whatever you don't get done today, you'll need to complete to have ready to turn in your portfolio on Friday. So once we get towards the end, I'll give y'all some 2-minute warnings and stuff so that anything that you have left to do that you haven't written yet, you can write down what all those requirements are so that you'll have those handy for when you're finishing up this assignment. Are there any questions?